Dick Van Dyke had just turned 99, and to anyone watching from the outside, he seemed almost ageless. He still danced with his wife Arlene, still exercised several times a week, still carried the lightness and humor that made him beloved for generations. But Arlene at 53, recently admitted that reaching such an extraordinary age comes with a cost people rarely see. She spoke quietly about the loneliness, the exhaustion, the toll of outliving nearly everyone who shaped your world. She said it was the curse of living almost a century, a truth she had kept to herself until now. His story began on December 13, 1925, in West Plains, Missouri, in a small house filled with simple routines and the constant absence of his father, a traveling salesman with sunshine cookies. His mother, a stenographer, held the family together. Money was tight, so Dick learned early how to entertain himself with jokes and improvised stories. Those little performances rooted themselves in him long before he understood what they meant. When he was 7, the family moved to Danville, Illinois, a town where neighbors chatted from porches, and life moved slowly enough for a boy to notice everything. He soaked up stories at family gatherings, mimicked silly voices, and joined drama and music activities at school. Danville High was small, but it lit a spark. Each school performance made him feel that entertaining wasn't just a pastime. It was a path. At 18, when applying for a passport, he discovered he had been celebrating the wrong birthday. His real birth date was December 13th, not the earlier one he had always believed. It didn't change his life, but it changed how he thought about it. Another reminder that even families hold quiet secrets. His ancestry stretched back centuries to Mayflower passenger John Alden, and his mother hoped he might become a minister. But one high school drama class sent him in another direction. Life at home had its own comedy. His younger brother Jerry, born in 1931, loved mischief, hiding homework, pulling pranks, filling the house with laughter and irritation. They later worked together on The Dick Van Dyke Show, but even as boys, their timing and energy fed off each other. School introduced him to future talent too. Donald O'Connor, Bobby Short, even a cousin of Gene Hackman. Surrounded by entertainers in the making, he saw what the future might hold. After graduating in 1943, he tried to enlist as a fighter pilot during the war, but was repeatedly rejected for being underweight. Eventually he was accepted, not as a pilot but as a radio announcer. With poor eyesight and no luck in flying tests, he was assigned to host Flight Time, a show for troops. At Camp Crowder he formed a silent comedy act, The Merry Mutes, with Phil Erickson. One sketch went too far in mocking officers, nearly getting them court-martialed. Instead they got a stern warning, an early lesson in how humor can push boundaries. After the war, he returned home with no job or money. He sold vacuum cleaners door to door, often discouraged but still holding on to the idea of entertainment. In 1947 he met Margie Willett at a church dance. They were different, she wanted stability, he chased performance, but they married anyway, famously exchanging vows on the CBS show Bride and Groom in 1948 in front of 15 million listeners, earning rings, furniture, and a honeymoon they couldn't have afforded otherwise. When the honeymoon ended, they were broke again, living in a relative's basement. Dick and Phil Erickson formed the comedy duo Eric and Van, performing while Margie worried about money and the long hours he poured into his dream. Dick bounced between radio jobs, living at times in a tiny trailer, eating peanut butter and drinking cheap coffee. He drank occasionally, then more often as pressures grew. Their act struggled in nightclubs until winning a CBS talent contest in 1953, which led to a radio job in Atlanta. Success was brief. Disagreements split the partnership. By 1955, he felt his life collapsing. A false DUI accusation damaged his reputation, sponsors deserted him, and he fell deeply into debt. Still, he didn't quit. A disastrous appearance on The Johnny Carson Show in 1957 unexpectedly led to an audition for Broadway. In 1958 he landed a small role, barely earning enough to survive. His family grew, Christian in 1948, Barry in 1949, Stacy in 1955, and Carrie Beth in 1961, while Margie worked as a waitress. His drinking escalated as he struggled to support them. His Broadway break came with Bye Bye Birdie in 1960. Rehearsals overwhelmed him, and at one point he nearly quit from embarrassment, but Carl Reiner convinced him to stay. When the show opened, his natural charm won over audiences, and he earned a Tony Award. Yet he was paid far less than the show generated, and behind the scenes he battled insecurity and fatigue. The film version in 1963 brought more frustration. His pay was cut, and studio politics left him disillusioned with Hollywood. He learned during this period that Margie was dependent on prescription pills. The shock pushed him deeper into drinking. Still, something remarkable happened in 1961. The Dick Van Dyke Show finally made it onto CBS after earlier rejections. Over 5 seasons it became a television landmark, reaching up to 30 million viewers. His improvisation, physical comedy, and chemistry with the cast made it iconic. But behind the success were salary disputes, jealousy, and his own growing exhaustion. Money struggles and alcoholism strained his marriage, and by the early 70s he was hospitalized for detox while Margie entered rehab at the same time. He left the show by choice, too drained to continue. Though he received a Hollywood Walk of Fame star and major syndication money, the personal cost was heavy. Mary Poppins brought joy in 1964, even if his much-mocked accent followed him for decades. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang in 1968 was a hit, but privately he battled depression and self-doubt. The 70s brought more career swings. The new Dick Van Dyke Show paid him handsomely but faltered and ended after 3 seasons. His drinking worsened. By the 80s he was back on Broadway in The Music Man, performing through back pain and relying on painkillers. He appeared on The Carol Burnett Show, continued working, and kept slipping in and out of recovery. In 1974 he publicly stated that alcoholism was a physical disease, helping reduce stigma at a time when few celebrities spoke so openly. Family life remained complicated. His children grew up largely without him because of long work hours and addiction. He later admitted trying to make up for it by pouring himself into his grandchildren. His marriage to Margie ended after he began a relationship with Michelle Triola, who remained with him until her death in 2009. Afterward, he found companionship with Arlene Silver, whom he met in 2006. They married in 2012, ignoring criticism about their 46-year age difference. He said she made him feel decades younger. As he aged, he continued acting, voicing characters, performing stunts well into his 80s, and even frightening crews during a real choking incident on Diagnosis Murder. In June 2024 at 98, he became the oldest person to win a Daytime Emmy for his role on Days of Our Lives. The audience roared as he joked that he would have taken better care of himself if he had known he'd live this long. Yet longevity carries shadows.